Murphy. When news breaks, we break in.
The Seat of Honor. Brought to you by Densmore Oil and Bugbee Plumbing.
I see the on-air light, but I don't
He's
hear
up
you.
late to give you the news you can't get anywhere else early. He fights for truth and justice and the American way. Please welcome our pal from the Paragon Trust Company, the real Tony D. Tony D'Angelo.
All right, everybody waits for Tuesdays at 7:06-ish, and we bring on the one and only Tony D'Angelo. You can find him, as always, on the X, Tony D'Angelo 7. Of course, he's got his own YouTube page. Tony, good morning. How are you, sir? Uh-oh, wait, did I do something? I might have forgot to do something, Tony. Hang on a second. Hang on, don't go anywhere. I got a feeling this one falls on yours truly. There we go. Now try it, Tony.
I see you and I hear you.
All right, we're in business. I forgot to push a button. I was sitting here, and I'm saying to myself, man, that setup was a little easy today. And then I said, well, I think I'm done, but I guess I wasn't done. I had to push one more button.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone.
All right, so did you want to start with affordability in Connecticut today? Is that where we're going first?
Well, today's listener's choice. You know, I get messages and I get people saying, "Hey, Tony, take a look at this. Hey, Tony, take a look at that." And some of these things I have to educate myself on, frankly. But when I get into them, and I encourage people doing this because I learn a lot when I do this. So we're going to start with a request from our good pal, old Dan, talking about affordability. And he had given me a study from Kiplinger. Actually, it was an article. You know how much I love studies. And it was about affordability. And he had pointed out that Connecticut, to your point today about the illegal families, Connecticut is number 2 for paying the most of your income on taxes. I believe New Jersey is number 1. And if you look at it, and these are really, I mean, to me, staggering figures. To somebody, making a household income $96,000, which I guess is pretty typical. Average income tax $7,200. Median annual property taxes $6,500, $66. Sales tax $117. I think that's low. Total average amount spent on taxes is $14,000. Now, this is a huge percentage of money, and you get no benefit for that. You get no tax deductibility. You don't get really anything for that. And, to your point this morning about the illegal families, and they're paying sales taxes and not paying income taxes, not paying property taxes. They're not paying, depending on how they're going around with the car, they're probably not paying motor vehicle taxes. I shouldn't make that assumption, but, it does go on. So, and this is the thing that really gets me, and I think this is the point Dan's driving at. When you have Republicans paralyzed at the Trump specter, we're now officially 1 year under Donald Trump, and which I think is, childish and cowardly in a lot of respects. Why not open up to what Kiplinger just told us? It's not D'Angelo, that's Kiplinger. It's like, hey, I agree with you about Trump the man. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you can certainly try to relate if you do agree. But Donald Trump cut your income taxes 20%. He did a number of other great economic things. Now that is fact, whether you love him or hate him. And then, kind of leave them with the choice. But this is the whole thing. If you've got that, and if you're going to be a Republican, what is so hard about looking at that figure and saying, hey, this tax system in this state is ridiculous. We need a lower tax. We need a flat tax. We need to start dismantling the administrative state in Connecticut because honestly, truthfully, why do we have high taxes in Connecticut? Because we have a very tax-dependent administrative state, and a lot of money goes out through NGOs, through to nonprofits without control. We've been through that time immemorial. and will again. And I mean, this is the thing, and I think, again, this is driving to Dan's point. You can't fix anything. We hear a lot of things. We hear a lot of campaign promises. People are running for governor. We're going to make Connecticut affordable. Well, how are you going to make Connecticut affordable if you're coming in at the same expense level, at the same bureaucracy, without structural fixes? I mean, it's kind of like saying I'm going to, run my car in water. It just doesn't work. And this is the thing. I mean, this is like so obvious, but yet it's so overlooked. That's my first thought. Thank you, Dan.
So, more than half of the state seems like they don't care about the affordability, Tony, because they keep voting in the same people who keep being proponents of the same flawed, fractured tax setup, don't they?
Well, it's true. But then again, the Democrats like to run around yelling affordability, affordability. Trump killed affordability. I mean, that wasn't Donald Trump that's taking 15% of your taxes in your, 15% of your income in Connecticut for taxes. Donald Trump had absolutely, positively nothing to do with that, even if you hate him. But I mean, this is really when you can't stop affordability. You can't do anything with affordability until you get to government spending. And, like Bob Swick and I were talking about it over the weekend with the fellows on Freedom on Deck. It's, when does the taxpayer get paid back for all of the bazillions of dollars that have gone to God knows where, God knows whom? It's, and it's just, hey, just ask us for more money to keep doing it. I mean, I see no firewall to stop this from happening. We're never going to fix anything in this country until we fix the cash spigot, Elci.
So I know you also sent me the median annual household income of Connecticut and the percentage that we pay in taxes and how it rates with other states. We're number 2, right? Is that what we come out as, number 2 as far as what we spend?
Effectively, we're number 2. And I mean, it's we ain't going to be able to sell Connecticut to a bunch of Eskimos wanting heaters if we don't do something about that. And we hear very little about that, from candidates at all. And I mean, you hear very little about that from Republicans other than blanket statements that I'm going to cut taxes. Well, how are you going to do it? Yeah. That's just one suggestion.
And two, also to sort of double down on what you're talking about here this morning, and we're talking with Tony D'Angelo, Tony D'Angelo 7 on the X. Follow him for sure. It's not that listen, nobody likes to pay taxes, right? But if you're telling me my tax dollars are going to something substantial and worthwhile, you swallow hard and you say, okay, it's for the good. But like you had just said, we don't know where most of this money goes. I have no idea. And after a while, I'm sick of it. And they keep on saying, well, just a little bit more here and a little bit more there and a little bit more here and a little bit more there. And as you are, I think, articulating, people in this state have had enough. At least most of the people I talk to have had enough.
You can't cut taxes unless you cut spending, unless you consolidate, unless you streamline, unless you make things more efficient. It's called governance, a concept which is foreign to just about every single elected official. They trust that to bureaucracies. And what do the bureaucracies do? We'll get into that in a moment when we start to talk about the farm tax issue. But it's the same thing. It's H. Ross Perot in stereo from Albert Einstein. Do the same thing expecting a different result, and guess what? It's idiotic, frankly.
You get the money siphoned off to programs certainly that you might not agree with, but then also you get the money siphoned off for the grift and the scams. I mean, I wonder how much percentage-wise, even a state like Connecticut, which is supposed to be so squeaky clean, but you have proven in the past that it's not. I wonder what's the percentage of the money that I spend in taxes every single year that goes into somebody's pocket and they're walking out the door with a big fat smile on their face.
Well, look at that 15% and look at how much of it is salaries. Not that every salary is undeserved, but I think in a lot of cases we can find that the salaries are way over scale for the actual services being delivered. That's a good question. That's something we have to look at in more minute detail.
All right. Did you want to flip the script and move to the farms?
Let's move to the farms now. We had the cavalry riding yesterday, and our governor Ned Lamont said, wait, enough. We're not going to have these ridiculous valuations on farm. This is another listener's choice. The listener had come to me and said, maybe, could you please talk about this? And this is before the fix. Now, been a lot of discussion and a lot of things as to, how this came up. But a couple of things here, another in an exercise of your tax dollars at work. We're now being told that, hey, this is great, government worked, and this is something that we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. Why does what can we do not to see it happen again? And when I got into and this is me, and this is the difference between me and people in government, or people in the private sector, as opposed to people in government. People in government never account for their sins. Rarely ever go back and say, where did we screw up? How did we screw up? What can we do so we don't screw up again? I mean, here I have to do that counts, and just about anybody in any kind of business, because there's no great bureaucracy you can fall on, and there's no great, I can't tax my neighbors for me, so that kind of thing. So anyway, the first thing, I think Senator Summers had mentioned that when it came down to actually getting to these figures, it somehow goes to the University of Connecticut, the homeowner-hating University of Connecticut, the homeowner-hating scientists of the University of Connecticut, the people that want to tax your water wells if they possibly could. We've been through that before. And the center at the University of Connecticut that did this, their name is the Zwick Center, Bob Zwick with a Z. Sorry about that, Bob. This is the first project like this they had ever done. And they do these marvelous reports that are very colorful. And now they start planning for the update. You have a system that's working for years. If you can get anything to work in Connecticut, this one apparently was working reasonably well. There's some collaboration between the OPM then Secretary Jeffrey Beckham, who's no longer there. He's going to be a judge. And the Department of Agriculture in Connecticut, under a commissioner, a name you haven't heard, a name I haven't read anywhere in this whole thing. His name is Brian P. Hurlburt, Hurlburt. And they start to collaborate as to how do we get these valuations happening. Now, when I look at Hurlburt, basically, and when I look at any single administrator under the Lamont administration, it's not only Lamont, this has gone back for years, basically, and this goes on with the cabinet, scream about Trump. At least he has people that are thinking and working with expertise in areas, as opposed to what you usually get. Look at the first cabinet under George W. Bush, and that's, I rest my case. But anyway, it's this guy effectively is a political operative. He's been around starting from the days of Jim Amon and working under him, and he gets involved with the Obama administration. He becomes an executive director for the USDA Farm Service. He was a president of something called Wholesome Wave, and he's been very good at handing out money. He's got no particular expertise in agriculture. This is operative point number one. How do these things happen? How do these poor people, how do these poor farmers had to go through this whole mess that, frankly, the unaccountable Ned Lamont, our governor, wrote away with a flick of his pen? This is a little bit of the reason why you have to do this. So they commissioned the study, they commissioned the survey, and I think as Senator Summers had alluded, it was a pitiful response because these aren't technicians. These are people that get out and work it out in the fields, and these aren't the kind of people that are sitting there playing on Instagram and iPhones. Now the report gets delivered, and basically you've got a number of discussions going back and forth, and there is a decision that is made. The responsibility of the decision rests with Beckham at OPM, saying, I am going to use this skewed, flawed data to concoct these fantastic assessments that will replicate market value. Now here's Hurlburt, right? He is the commissioner of the Ag Department. You don't read about him. You don't hear about him. You don't see any kind of advocacy. Anybody looking at that situation at that point say, hey, this thing is going to be a 10-ton bomb if it goes off. This will put farms out of business. What can we do to stop it? Now, one thing I do want to make a note here of, and basically comes back to our governor, Ned Lamont. You would presume, or the legitimate politics would like you to believe that this is a guy that knows what all his commissioners are doing. This is a guy that knows how to manage. I read a lot of times the Connecticut Mirror always calls him the businessman governor, and it's like, he didn't know about this then. He didn't know about what was going down then. Was he told? Was he not told? And you know something, Elci? Neither outcome here is good, basically. You either were told and you didn't do anything, and you were saying, oh, let's see how this thing plays in Peoria, and if it gets real bad, I'll just write it away. Or you weren't told, which basically says you are an inattentive, lousy, incompetent manager. There ain't no in between here. It just ain't possible. And this is the whole thing. If you're on a farm and if you're working, believe me, I do a little bit of farming here, helping Kathy with the chickens. And I hurt when I'm done with this. I mean, you have got to be deaf, dumb, blind, and dishonest if you vote Democrat, basically. I mean, I'm not thoroughly pleased with Republican, but this is like terrible. Somebody could have said something in October saying, hey, this thing ain't going to go down right. I mean, you're going to call a special session of the legislature? Why not do it here? I mean, this is a whole aggravating, awful mess that with a little bit of management, common sense, and direction, we never would have had to have gone through. And my heart goes out to the poor farmer who doesn't want to be a politician. I can sympathize with you in the little bit of farming I do. And this is, quote unquote, your government, your administrative state, and your state management and your agencies where all these taxes are being paid at work.
Tony D'Angelo, and unfortunately the low information voter out there, Tony, will think that Governor Lamont did something spectacular when it
exactly. I screwed up, but I saved my screw up, so I'm wonderful. Yeah, and they're done that.
Without people like Heather Summers and the folks around her, no one would have known anything about this, unfortunately. All right, so tell me about this scandal in New Haven for the police.
Yeah, in 2 minutes, and I'm gonna. This one here is absolutely amazing. If everybody should read this, there is the New Haven police chief. His name is Carl Jacobson, or shall I say, the ex-New Haven police chief. This is a guy who we actually looked at a year ago when they started having the hearings or the meetings about ICE coming to New Haven, and he was going to protect all the people. And he came out of the Dean Esserman thing when Dean Esserman was chief. You could read about that. This is a guy that made the statement at this meeting. As far as what are you going to do about illegal migrants in your city? And he said, we need the consent of the community to police the community, meaning we have to police the community the way the community wants to be policed. And a large part of our community is undocumented, said the chief. That was from the Connecticut Sentinel. Hey, Abbott, who's on first? But basically, he has had his hand in the till. He has admitted to stealing approximately $10,000 from the department informant fund. And right now, at this point, he is an odds-on favorite to get his pension. And this is, which is an incredible insult to the good people of New Haven, a lot of whom are my friends, a lot of whom, are diehard New Haveners. They ain't going to leave. They love the place. And this is like, if you look at the history, and this is the whole thing, and I think it goes back to your tax dollars, it goes back to government accountability. What goes on in the New Haven Police Department is wretched. The mayor, Justin Elliker, covers it up. Either that or says, again, it's that great municipal management thing. We fix the problem that we ourselves have created. Therefore, aren't we wonderful? Please reelect us. Here's a few freebies. This guy basically is, and if this thing goes down, he gets his pension after having his hand in the till and being such a great advocate for the community. $10,400 a month for that and for everything he's done. And it is an insult to that person in Connecticut spending 15% of his income to support this kind of stuff. I just threw the papers off the table.
And I think to myself, he was caught this time. How many other times was his hand in the cookie jar, Tony, that we don't know about, right? I mean, no one gets caught the first time, I don't think. Maybe they do, I don't know. But
thank you for saying that, Lee Elci. It goes back to the days of Judas Iscariot. Now, yesterday we were religious. I mean, Judas was Jesus's treasurer, and he was stealing from the bag, and the apostles knew he was stealing from the bag, basically. And they just said, "Well, hey, we got that's Judas. That's what he does." I mean, it's like listen. Yeah, you want to do it right. There's a way to do it right, but you got to fix it, basically.
Tony D'Angelo, follow him on the X. The great show will come up on Thursday too on his own YouTube page. Sometimes he knows what he's going to do, sometimes he doesn't. I'll ask you, do you know this week?
I think we're going to talk about this administrative state thing in Connecticut. It's basically It's this glaring eyesore, and we need to have an administration, but we don't need to be consistently feeding something that really gives us the kind of stuff we talk today. And thanks to the listeners for giving me those subjects.
All right, and that was kind of fun. Well, the listeners was sort of like the all request hour back in the day. Tony, have a good one, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, pal.
All right, man. Tony D. Always an honor and a pleasure to chat with my good friend Tony D'Angelo. And nobody digs deeper into this stuff than he does. All right, we'll talk to Bruce Flax. We're going to play Flax some audio next.